everyone, and welcome to Dragons, Gazelles, and Unicorns. I'm Rosemary Truman, founder and CEO of the Center for Advancing Innovation, and I'm very, very pleased to have the talented Bjorn Simmons on the show today. Thank you so much for joining, Bjorn.
Hi, Rosemary. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, you are so talented, and you're going to share so many insights with us today with the Venture Noire and all of your illustrious past, which is quite accomplished. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey?
Well, yeah. So again, I appreciate your platform, and kudos to you and all the work that you do as well. It's been a treat getting to know you and kind of watch you along this journey. As you introduced, I'm Bjorn Simmons. I'm originally from Arkansas. I grew up in North Little Rock, attended the University of Arkansas, and eventually moved to all over the country. Started my career in politics, and then became a full-time entrepreneur once I was introduced to the startup world. And I really enjoyed my journey as an entrepreneur. Now I'm more so of an entrepreneur working on behalf of other entrepreneurs, really focused on improving the conditions for entrepreneurship for entrepreneurs of color. And so we really do a lot of work to build inclusive innovation ecosystems as these communities are really growing across the country and really across the world. To focus on entrepreneurship and innovation and startups and technology, we want to make sure that there's appropriate resources for people of color to get access and to accelerate and thrive as well.
So you went from politics to entrepreneurship, kind of like from safe to risky.
That's what my mom would say.
Yeah? How did you make that shift?
Good question. So I think I really was interested in politics because I like the opportunity or working in impactful spaces. And, I started in college, just volunteering on campaigns, and then moved out to Atlanta, Georgia to work for Stacey Abrams in the House of Representatives in state of Georgia. And Carolyn Hughley, who was the whip then, was her intern, went from an intern to chief of staff pretty quickly, but I fell in love with the space because, again, the impact that it really had, and then also just connection to real resources that drive economic activity. So really understanding how true economies work, the influence and impact of education systems, understanding how macro and micro employment and unemployment works. And those things really fascinated me, really changed the conditions. And so I think I liked the education of it all, but I did not like the rigidness of it, right? And so before I decided to run for office, I came up with this thing that before I run for office, I wanted to make sure I have my own resources and community so that I won't be influenced to vote based on people who put money into me.
Interesting.
And so I found the world of startups and entrepreneurship and innovation. I really was introduced to the space by way of South by Southwest in Austin, Texas. I was working there just to kind of doing some freelance work. I've always been a creative and was doing some freelance experiential marketing campaigns at that time with the startup. And getting off the plane, you see blimps flying over the sky. You go from a conference with key thought leaders from a wide range of spaces to a concert with Kanye West and Jay-Z all in one day.
Yeah.
That was enough for my 24-year-old self to say, hey, this is somewhere you need to be.
Austin's amazing. Yeah, it really is full of life. So, I also share your passion. I have a passion for making a positive, sustainable impact. And consulting, I could do that a lot with companies, but it's even better when you can help entrepreneurs.
Absolutely.
So when you were talking about resources for entrepreneurs and minorities, what are the missing links right now? Because that's what you're really making an impact in that area.
Absolutely. So again, I think it was a natural transition for me to go from politics to entrepreneurship, finding my own way to now combining the two to create spaces for other entrepreneurs to thrive. And you're exactly right. Sustainability and impact are the two things I would say that really keep me here and make the work that I do meaningful. The things that we're always really trying to provide for entrepreneurs of color specifically, number one is access. Oftentimes there's just limited access because of lack of relationships, awareness, just access to information. You think about rural areas with their connectivity issues. You think about, most prominent areas, just gaps in knowledge and ownership. Right, so we think about, so definitely number one be access to information and proper resources. Two, be equity, so proper ownership, understanding what your ownership structures look like, how to create those, how to sustain those, and how to get them properly funded. And of course, number three would be resources and funding, the funding gap. And so providing adequate capital and investment opportunities, whether that's through investors or through financial institutions, to these entrepreneurs is super critical and something that's oftentimes looked over. The stat that everybody knows is, it's between 1% and 2% of all venture capital is invested in entrepreneurs of color. But we're not just only working in venture capital. I think we started off there, and we're now starting to pivot our model to be more encompassing of other entrepreneurs who have been traditional entrepreneurs for a long time or have a more of a traditional business but still want to get access to financial instruments that they may not have readily available in their networks and their families, their friends, and their circle of influence. And so really creating those spaces and those partnerships is essential to the work that we do to so that we're not taking over. We're not in the business of taking over anybody's business or creating the best solutions. It's all about empowerment. And the work that we're doing is really empowering those who are the true heroes to save their own communities.
So why don't you tell the audience a little bit about the mission of Venture Noire?
Yeah, awesome. So we launched Venture Noire in October of 2019 in Northwest Arkansas. Essentially, we launched it in New York prior to just really doing a series of conversations about how do we really solve for this gap. But we launched specifically Venture Noire in Northwest Arkansas in October to really make sure that there was space for entrepreneurs of color to find success in the region. And we're not just definitely for Northwest Arkansas, but in the Heartland region, Middle America, which is kind of this concentration that Northwest Arkansas is becoming a hub for and stimulate economic growth. And so we wanted to make sure that as this region, being one of the top 5 most attractive places in the country to be, was growing so exponentially that there was space and an invitation and properly resources for entrepreneurs of color to take advantage of and again to thrive. And so it was an opportunity for me to come back home and do this work that I'm so passionate about. I've been working in this space for about almost 4 years now, since I was in Cincinnati, Ohio, where I really was first started working and gained this passion. My company then I was working for a co-founder of a startup called Wyzerr, and we raised almost $2 million in venture capital. And when we should have been probably more focused on building our business, a part of me, the activator and activist in me, was really caught on the idea that we were one of the few to raise that kind of venture capital outside of the coast, but really just in the country by all minority-led teams. And so from that, stimulated my passion to go into a big venture capital firm or fund of funds centrifuge to really focus on diversity, equity, inclusion. And years later, I'm able to bring that work back home to do the same thing here.
So your family's still in Arkansas?
My family's still in Arkansas, based in Central Arkansas, so I get to see them quite often. So that's definitely a perk to being back home.
Very nice. So, where are you? How many companies have gone through Venture Noire so far?
Yeah, so Venture Noire so far, again, when we think about those gaps that we talked about a little bit earlier, we focus on 3 primary things: curriculum, providing adequate access to information and education. This happens through programs like workshops and speaker series, boot camps, things like that. So where we are hands-on with those companies, giving them proper education, how to pitch, how to make sure they have the proper slide decks, how to put together their financials, how to communicate with investors, how to communicate with financial institutions. Secondly is community. So making sure you have access to mentors and other entrepreneurs and other people that they can spitball ideas off of, making sure that these entrepreneurs aren't going through this journey alone. And essentially and being taking a part of the resource within the community. And third is closing the capital gap and make sure we're introducing them and properly preparing them for introduction to investors. And so so far we've been hands within, coming upon our 1 year mark here, we've been hands-on with over 200 companies.
Awesome.
That have touched our program, gone through our programs. And most recently, we did a pitch competition called the Big Pitch. That
was fantastic. You did a great job with that. That was really great. That was South by Southwest, a virtual.
Yeah, I was trying to bring some culture.
I loved it.
To the space, but it was great. Thank you so much for participating and supporting. But the Big Pitch, we awarded $31,000 in grant funds. Again, trying to close that early stage gap to 4 entrepreneurs, and we've been consistently hands-on, through the pandemic with helping people get access to PPP loans, SBA, things like that. So we've been working around the clock, and in different spaces, really just trying to make sure that these entrepreneurs get the proper support, especially in not being on the coast or in a major market, to support appropriate resources.
Honestly, I have to tell you, I was on the phone with the SBA probably 12 times, and I had them change one of their forms. I think it was an act of God, because I have become an expert in PPP. And this is July 7th, 2020, and we're coming out of the COVID. But
hopefully we're coming out of it.
It takes a PhD, for God's sake. So,
yes,
because
absolutely.
Yeah, I was working with one of my friends on that, and some of our startups with that as well. And there were different answers depending upon the bank. And some of the banks would answer and some of the banks wouldn't answer. It was quite an adventure, but it went through, so that was good.
So even thinking about that, right, there's understanding the need to have a relationship with a bank, right?
Yes. Oh my gosh, yes.
If you don't have a relationship with a bank, it's a completely different process than having one with them.
Oh my gosh, yes. And
with
so I was so fortunate that I think a little begging worked.
Yeah.
And then what's really also interesting, the relationship with the bank, we launched a new company called Ignite Social Impact, which is a crowd equity platform, which, by the way, I think some of your companies would be a great fit for.
Okay.
It is the FINRA changed the rules for crowd equity fundraising. So now you can raise up to $5 million with a Title II by accredited and unaccredited investors. And it uses a special purpose vehicle, so it doesn't basically fragment the cap table. So, and then we'll be going after A+ after that. So that'll be coming out in the fall. So that could help with your access to capital component.
Absolutely, I would love to learn more about that. There's a number of tools that people are toying around with. I had a couple of friends who've done pretty well on StartEngine and things like that. But I think it's essential to have more of those tools, exactly like what you're saying, because rules have changed. It's a lot of education, so I would love to learn more about that. See how
and the A+, what's changed about the A+ is mini IPO now. It's about $50 million. So for companies that are growing, they can continue to grow on the same platform, which is really nice.
That is awesome.
Well, you have a lot of things going on. You have a lot of plans going forward. Could you talk about some of the things that you're working on right now that are going to change the future for all your great startups?
I definitely share some for sure. We're really excited to roll out our nonprofit side of the work that we're doing. Foundation for Social Impact is launching, and that foundation is specifically going to focus on providing non-equity-based resources to entrepreneurs and in a number of ways. And so it'll be a grant-based organization that's offering grants. One of the gaps that we really find in this space is that a lot of African-American founded entrepreneurs of color don't have families that can give them, $10, $15, $25,000 to get the idea off the ground for their friends and family around that we so often see in the traditional startup journey. And so we're trying to supplement that as much as we can with some grant-based programs, and we get really creative on how we build those grants. So that's going to be super exciting. We're also allowing, some high net worth individuals, athletes, things like that, to create their own foundations. With everything going on, a lot of them don't have the know-how to do the admin and managerial things, but the Foundation for Social Impact is going to be a co-founder, if you will, in the social impact space. And so really focus on social innovation and how social innovation plays a role into modern economics, especially when we think about this culture change that we're going through right now. It's a modern day civil rights movement, and this everything else is happening that we really have to pay close attention to. Because it's important to recognize this and look at it not as from a space of trauma, because that can be so heavy, but look at the real opportunity we have to co-create something beautiful that we've never seen before. The thing that we've been challenged in this work of diversity, equity, inclusion, the question we've challenged with is, what does the end goal look like? What does true diversity, inclusiveness, and equity look like? And the answer is that we don't know. We've never seen it before. We've never experienced it before. But the work that we're doing what's the exciting thing about it is that we can really create and paint a beautiful picture on a blank canvas where everybody really leads in their intentions and their resources to do so with that common thread. So I'm hoping for that to come to fruition. I would love to see how far we can really take this and build some things that can really change the world forever.
That is very inspirational. I love what you said, beautiful picture on a blank canvas. And it's so interesting that your foundation is called a Foundation for Social Impact, because ours is called Ignite Social Impact. So we're thinking the same way. Oh my gosh. Yes. That's awesome. So can you elaborate a little bit on social innovation, that term, social innovation? How do you think about it?
Yeah, so I've been I've really been studying. I'm becoming a student to things. So my process oftentimes is to become a student to whatever space. I lived my career when I was in politics. I lived and breathed it. It's a 24-hour thing for me. When I was in my startup, I lived and breathed it. Same thing now in the diversity space. I'm doing the same thing, but now in the space of social innovation, I've been in the venture capital space, startup world for so long, and I think the capitalism of that can kind of overshadow my passion at times, right? And then when we think about social, not taking anything away from capitalism, it plays a huge role in what we're doing. But the social innovation space is really finding solutions to our modern day problems and make sure there's a level of impact into the investments that we make, all right? And so understanding that a restaurant in an urban community is not just a restaurant to that community, right? That's a thriving entrepreneur who, once it becomes successful, that becomes a watering hole for that community. That becomes a place of community because you're creating changing generational impacts for their families, for those people in that region. Same thing for barbershop, beauty shops, right? And so thinking about them from a different lens of what impact do these social entrepreneurs play, right? And what other solutions are there out there? When we think about empowering entrepreneurs, the social innovation space is not saying, hey, we have all the answers. Fund me is saying, hey, there are a ton of things that we don't know, and we're investing in learning the unknown, and by empowering other people to find those solutions for us. And so that's how we're kind of looking at social innovation. It's still a problem solution space. I think that's what innovation is solving problems. And with the lens for social innovation, you're really trying to focus on empowering other people to find the problems within their own community, as opposed to, our traditional ways of saying, hey, I found the solution.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting that you say that restaurants are like a hub. If you look at a microcosm, and all the people who haven't been able to go out during COVID-19, we have to re-engineer our social innovation right?
Absolutely.
With the Reengineer, reimagine. You're absolutely right about the picture on the blank canvas. I love that.
It's all about reimagination, right? And reimagining things.
Mm-hmm.
You look at history as a reference, but innovation as a whole is changing everything. It's happening very fast, and now we're going through a cultural revolution, and we can't assume that we know what needs to happen, even though there are some basic fundamentals in this space, right? So there are things like the connectivity that we have to solve, where you have to make sure rural students have access to high speed
the internet, yeah,
to the internet, right? There are things that you need to have. There should be data capturing sources, at things like traffic lights now, right? We understand that saves lives, right? But there are also things like you said that places that become hubs that offer more than just a transaction, right? So going from just basing the impact of a business on the transactions to what other transformations happen there, and really looking at that and how that influences culture and society. And so again, I'm a student to it now, but I hope to learn more and become a real player in the space here, Ree. So.
Well, we share the same passion for innovation, and at IBM, I launched and ran their innovation practice globally. And so we used to think about innovation in 3 horizons: Horizon 1, Horizon 2, and Horizon 3. And the Horizon 1s were like the foundational components that you just mentioned, things like connectivity and things of that nature. There are anywhere from 11 to 13 levers of innovation. It's pretty straightforward, but some of those can make an enormous impact. They're table stakes. And then Horizon 2 is just incremental innovation, which is not something that we can do or is going to serve us very well. It's important to continue to grow, but Horizon 3 are the real growth breakthroughs. And that's where you actually make every segment of everything you're looking at net new. So it's completely net new. So if you think from a business standpoint, it's a net new customers, net new product service, net new business model.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and then you can expand that into 8 different lenses. We could talk about that. I could talk about that forever.
But, I love it. I'm writing that down.
Okay, well, I have a deck on it, so I can walk you through it.
Absolutely.
It was fun. The lenses, what you do is you ideate on each of the lenses, and when you bring all the ideation together, you can then combine it into a growth breakthrough that is net new on all 3 levels. So that's actually, and then the ideation can be, there's actually 163 kinds of ideation, but there's like 3 major ones. But okay, I'm going on a little bit off here.
I'm loving it. It's so much knowledge. I like exchanges like this because it's not me presenting all the time my stories probably on YouTube somewhere else. This is where true growth is, right? Like, and they having a real conversation where that can stimulate something, a breakthrough. I love that. Even the diversity sense of it.
We call it, I mean, that's what we needed, a growth breakthrough, something that's, and probably 3 to 7. We used to always think that the time frame to get a growth breakthrough implemented is 3 to 7 years, usually, unless it's in the oil and gas space, and that's like 30 years. It's much longer, but 3 to 7 for normal ones. You come up with the growth breakthrough initially, and then the roadmap. And then you have to find planks that you can use to at least provide the foundation for that growth breakthrough. So anyway, we can chat about that.
I love it. Please, let's do it.
Yeah. So right now, what do you need? If the audience could help support your community, what would it be?
Yeah, that's a great question. Where I see things going is I appreciate let me step back. Since the whole Black Lives Matter movement has taken a fire since the George Floyd tragedy, a number of people have reached out, and I remember feeling almost burdened by having to respond to the consistent question of what do I do now, because I felt like I had to find the perfect solution, right? And then and that was the first burden. Then second was that, well, I've been working in this space for a long time. Are people just now caring about what I do? And so, you go through these emotions, and then you come to a place of actualization, right? How do you really mobilize people? And how can people help? One, learn more about the companies that we support. Venture Noire, you can find us on Venture Noire's activities online at venturenoir.org. The Foundation for Social Impact is thinksocialimpact.org. You can learn more about both those organizations there. But more so, we have a directory called MBX that has the companies that every company we've touched is listed there. And every company.
I'll be going through that.
And you will see companies that are, from traditional business to have very innovative solutions. They need to support, right? So I really I'm turning that question over to them. There are things we're really excited about, excited about raising our grant-based fund. We're excited about, launching some more funding instruments here really soon. I don't want to announce anything prematurely, but we are making sure that we are solving and want to be a properly resourced catalyst in this space. And so that's just my overall objective. I'm pretty easy to find and get in contact with as well. I guess I could share bksimmons.com is my personal website. I'm also listed on the websites I mentioned earlier. I can be found on all social media, Bjorn Simmons or BK Simmons. I think I captured both of those in most places. But, the support I'm looking for is those that really want to be mentors. If you want to mentor a company, that goes so far. If you're a subject matter expert in your space, we would love to onboard you to the MBX to mentor those companies. If you're looking to invest as an investor for a return, we can talk about that as well. We have our Investor Fridays every Friday where I just sit down and I talk to investors who are at some level of commitment to entrepreneurs of color and just talk about what they're looking for and try to source that pin into a board. And then when I talk to my companies, we talk about what they need in order to get there. And then third, you can always, follow us and partner with us. We partner all the time on events and activations for our entrepreneurs. So we'd love to just learn more. Again, going into the social innovation space, there are a world of possibilities that I'm super excited to tap into as for how do we really modernize cultural relevancy and be at the intersection of kind of technology or innovation and culture, specifically for people of color, with keeping them in mind. But for our allies, there are things I would like to leave with the group, in that now that the world is changing, being in homogenous spaces does not work anymore, right? So anytime that you're especially even in a position of leadership where you're making decisions on a population that may not look like you, it's just irresponsible to operate that in a homogenous way. So speak up, be aware, and diversity and inclusion starts with a welcome and an invitation. It starts there every single time. And so, recognizing the things that don't work and really moving forward, leaning into things that will create that breakthrough that we talked about earlier, is just super important. And it just starts one step at a time. It's not, we're not going to do it overnight, but, one step at a time, we can really get there.
So just to kind of recap, you're working on your foundation. You have some funding instruments coming to light. You can reach out to BK at bksimmons.com and on social media. Investor Fridays, don't forget about those. Reach out and participate in those. Interested in partnerships for events, activation for entrepreneurs. We want to partner with you on social innovation. I definitely want to do that. Let me help you with that. I want to help.
Yes.
And also we should work on an event together.
I would love to do that. We should definitely do an event together.
Yeah, 80% of our startups are co-founded by minorities, and we've launched 335. So we have many that could be a fit. So let's dream something up there.
Let's do it. I love your hackathon that's coming up. That's awesome.
Yeah, right. Okay. So, and then I think that the last thing that you mentioned, I want to put a point on. I was just talking to this gentleman by the name of Joey Coleman. He's a book about retaining clients, retaining customers, and he's thinking about another book on empathy. And you said, it's very important to be aware and to lean in. So I think there's a theme for today of for every day, not just today, but a theme that has been reiterated about leaning in and having empathy and being aware. It's actually a conscious activity. I mean, you have to actually really think about it.
Absolutely.
And remind yourself of it. Because we all have flaws and sometimes are not thinking about the other person's circumstances.
Absolutely.
So
you're exactly right. Empathy is the right word, especially in a time like this. And I think it's something that's been going on for a long time, but this is now that it's brought to light. This is our time to really decide who we are as people.
We're human beings.
As human beings, you called it out in the email, but one of my favorite quotes is, "Success is not about what you achieve; it's about who you become." And just being very conscious of that is kind of just my day-to-day walk. And as an entrepreneur, as a activator, as a catalyst, as a support, as a family person, as a brother, son, uncle, all those things. So
I want to repeat that because that is such a great quote. I love it. You pinned it, that tweet. Activating your dreams is not about what you get. It's about who you become. That's Absolutely. Amazing. That's a fantastic quote. So you're a successful entrepreneur. What makes a successful entrepreneur? What do you?
Things that make a successful entrepreneur. Dedication first. You have to be dedicated to your growth of your business, to other people, to yourself. Those things are extremely important, and it works well and it works together. It doesn't always. I don't think entrepreneurs for everybody. I don't think entrepreneurs for the faint at heart. You really have to have some level of autonomy in how you carry yourself.
And grit, right?
And grit, right? and be willing to step up to the challenge, right? And make it through the tough days, as well as to know how to celebrate the small wins. And I also think integrity is really important. Some people do make it by being sharks and eating everybody else up. But I think some of the best entrepreneurs are those who have a level of integrity within their business, and you see it because they're the ones who last. They're the ones who are there for a long time. They don't go anywhere, and their impact becomes a legacy as opposed to just a moment. And I guess lastly, just being committed to continuous learning, always learning about people, sociology, psychology, learning the best practices, learning about your customers, learning about your competition, learning about the markets. It's always, you never know enough in this space. You always have to continue to learn. And now that the information cycle is so much more fast than it's ever been, it's just hyper important to always be learning. And closing.
Yes. Closing. Always going to be closing. Yep.
And closing.
Very good.
If your business doesn't make money, you're not in business.
Yeah, that's right. So dedication, integrity, tenacity, grit, commitment to learning, being open, and closing. Open and closing.
I love that. I like how your innovation brain takes me. You cite information in. I love that.
Oh, thank you. You're a star. So I have another question for you that I'd love to hear. You don't have to tell me the answer, but how did you get that deal with Spotify? How did you get that deal with Spotify? That's pretty damn good.
So my business partner, Keenan Beasley, is the co-founder of Venture Noire, and he comes from a background at Procter & Gamble. He's a West Point grad, and after his corporate stint, he was a young Black executive, moved fast in corporate America. He became an entrepreneur with a company called Black Box, where he was doing creative marketing campaigns and for big brands. And so he had a relationship with a ton of brands, and so he was able to foster that.
Excellent.
And get some cool things off the ground. And that's when we launched Venture Noir. That was our intention: is how do you help big brands get more connected to this space and intentional about closing the gap for entrepreneurs of color, because we want to see more. We want to see Black Zuckerbergs. We want to see more Black billionaires. We want to see more brown billionaires. We want to see more women, right? So how do we share those tools to encourage that activity? And the corporations play a big role in this. I'm an ecosystem developer at heart now. I love building ecosystems, right, and managing through that. And Big C stand true. Right? You need a community of entrepreneurs and creators. You need your corporations engaged, and you need capital that's active. Right? So when those three things play well together, now you can have a thriving ecosystem. That's, again, going back to the basic fundamentals. And so we're always reaching out to corporations for support. And so we are an open collaborator. I like to think that one of our themes for the company as well as myself is just being a master collaborator with others. So
we have to create the H1, H2, H3 for the social innovation, and because the H1 are the foundational components. So we've already just mentioned like some of the foundational components. It exists for growth strategy, but I don't think it exists really for community building. And that's what, so the social innovation for community building, really.
Yeah.
What else would you like to leave with the audience? What other insights and valuable thoughts for budding entrepreneurs?
Well, I hope this has been valuable. I think I've definitely enjoyed the conversation for sure. Things that I will leave with entrepreneurs. I'll start there. I am a fan of the startup model of entrepreneur success. Right. I love the grit of it. I love the foundation that every entrepreneur is a problem solver. Right. And I think once you take that to heart, you look at your business differently. Right. Your business, again, does not become an organization for transaction. It becomes an organization for transformation, because you're trying to solve a problem that you can see that you found. Right. And so when you start thinking about your business in that way, I think you operate differently. So I challenge entrepreneurs out there to ensure that you understand the problem that you're solving and the hero that you are within your own business. And I know it takes a lot of discipline, and you're responsible for so many other people, but I think when you take home as to what that problem is that you're solving, that you have a change of heart, and that I think your heart pumps different when you become aware of that, and you create a transformational organization as opposed to a transactional organization. For your corporate partners that are listening, corporate audience, we do not undermine the important role that big brands play in today's society. And I've had a lot of most of my talks in the past have been a lot about innovation, and here's the next big thing in AI or whatever it is what you should be leaning towards. But now that we are in this cultural space, right, this cultural revolution, we need those that have found success, have done things well, who are those big brands, those huge centers of influence, to lean in more so than just putting out a PR statement. Like, the worst thing that can happen is for the things that come out, it should just be for press and not be able to show the receipts, as Whitney Houston would say, show me the receipts. So no, seriously, the accountability there just has to come with these announcements that are being made, and these big brands. We can't undermine the importance of the role that you play in being buyers, being influencers, being teachers, being coaches for the entrepreneurs who are trying to create and launch and get a small business off the ground, or a startup that you could potentially acquire. For the investors out there, same thing, right? That investment, that intentional investment, is super important, and you just never know when you're going to find that next unicorn. But there are so many more unicorns than you see. and they just have not been prepped. And then oftentimes, a lot of companies that we work with, especially year one, has been about speaking the language. It hasn't been about being a great entrepreneur or having a great business. It's about, do you speak the language that they listen to now?
Yeah.
And I would say that's 80% of the work, right?
I know. Yeah. We work with our startups a lot on hot seats. Just going over the words and the way of presenting and even emailing,
Emailing, absolutely.
Presenting anything, presenting yourself on social media, presenting everything that you can Google on you.
Absolutely.
Is your image.
Absolutely. And investors look at those things
for 30 seconds and make a decision.
And they make a decision.
Yeah.
That's exactly what they do.
They make a decision in 30 seconds.
30 seconds. So.
Remember that, everyone.
In 30
Judgment
seconds.
call.
Quick.
Yeah.
Quick.
Yep.
And so to the investors, create more investors. All right.
Yes,
that should be the goal.
Yes.
Create more investors. Right. It's not about, and when you taking on a big win, if you create more investors, you will see more wins. Right. We need more episodes of success.
And I love that, episodes of success. That's right. And it's because I think that the investors, think about taking a little bit more risk.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, there's lots of investors out there for real estate and things of that nature, but have a bigger risk tolerance, and there'll be some big rewards for that.
Absolutely.
So for the entrepreneurs, make sure you know what problem you're solving.
Absolutely.
To create a transformational organization. For big brands, be accountable. Show us the receipts. And for the investors, we need more that are willing to take risks on these startups that know what problem they're solving. So thank you so much for your time today. You are a star. I'm really my privilege to have the opportunity to have you on the podcast. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, and thank you for providing this platform and all the work you do. And I look forward to our innovation conversation as well as our partnership.
Partnering with you on social innovation. Yes.
Yes, absolutely. So
have a great day. Thank you so much. Take care.
Awesome. Take care.